Hello, I'm Regina Lux with Veritas on the Rocks, and I'm super duper excited today to have two of the three authors of Drinking with Patriots, Craft Cocktails as Easy as 3, 2, 1 here with me today. I'm going to ask them a bunch of questions. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited because this is like perfect for a 4th of July video.
Oh, yes.
Paul is a software executive with a background in technology, healthcare, and engineering. He has 7 kids, and he is from the Midwest. Steve also lives in the Midwest, is a father of 4. He's in commercial equipment sales and oversees a large territory there. Both have enjoyed libations since they were legally allowed to drink. So we are not encouraging any underage drinking. We're all goody two-shoes here. And like I said, these are 2 of the 3 authors of this awesome book I'm very excited to get into. One of the authors, Henry, could not sit in with us. So I did want to take a moment to give my first impressions of the book. It goes into a lot of very interesting history, important information, talks about base spirits. It's a really great book, something any seasoned drinker should definitely have. And it's written very differently from other cocktail books. So we will get into that. I love the history lessons in it. There's also variations of the various different drinks and places you can jot down your own recipes. And it has awesome artwork that has lots of little symbolism in the artwork and in the book, which any of my watchers know that I'm all about that. So like, when did you guys decide to start writing the book? Was it during COVID or before COVID?
We had talked about writing a cocktail book probably since we first met.
Yeah.
Just off and on.
Yeah. I mean, it was funny story. We got into the habit of making cocktails when we would come together as families, like just social life. Mm-hmm. And this was probably 5 years ago at this point. And our wives said, you guys are pretty good. And do you mind if we offer you as a raffle item at the school auction?
Oh, wow.
And we said, sure. And so one thing led to another. 14 people purchased us being bartenders at a private party. And so we made drinks for 14 people. I think we counted, we made like 120 something drinks in one night. I mean, these were all like porter drinks, like we weren't trying to get anyone sloshed or anything, but we wanted to take them through a bunch of drinks. One thing led to the next. We were raffled off the next year for more money, which I thought was pretty cool.
Awesome.
And just kind of got this reputation as like, hey, you guys are the bartender guys. It's like, I never bartended. I lifeguarded. I had, that was my college job. But I think between the both of us, it was sort of, taking a sipping drink and mixing things with it, like, oh, this is better, this is tastier. Like, would you say? And then looking at some of the classic drinks, like, oh, this is what they used to drink in New Orleans in the 1920s, and let's try this drink. Wow, this is delicious, and it was really a discovery of what a good drink tasted like. Yeah, and that was kind of the start.
I mean, that's a very authentic journey, and that's awesome. I mean, everybody should be following their passions and what drives them. And there you go. Now you have a book.
Yeah, it was. And so what, I would say one impetus for actually sitting down and writing and not just talking about it was lockdowns. I mean, Steve and I have day jobs. Both have families. We'd rather drink the drink than write the book about the drinks. All being equal. But we had a lot of extra time in our hands and the inability to do much else. Where we live, we were, sort of had these lockdowns that I guess allowed the flexibility to sort of lock down with people you wanted to lock down with, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And so we elected to hang out and sort of socially isolate with our families. And it was in that context of a lot of together time with a lot of mixed drinks that we came up on, let's do this. We've got time. And
It was actually at our kitchen table here.
That's right.
That's awesome.
We were having a cocktail, and we just started talking about writing a cocktail book again and having a drink, and we came up with the name that night, and got another friend involved to set everything up, and then I would say, the early part of the writing, again, the COVID theme was we were all very excited when things started to loosen in terms of what you could do and not do, and we decided as families that we would all head south from where we are, and we rented a place on the Gulf Shores in Alabama for 2 weeks. And we went down, and this was whatever it was, May of last year. And we went down, we made a bunch of cocktails and started writing on the beach, and did our work remotely, which we'd been doing for several months at that point. It was a way to, escape a little bit, turn, because we do want to teach. And I think, anyone who looks at the book understands that our goal here is to help people get the tools and the techniques for doing it themselves. It's like, don't look at our book as like some kind of a, authoritative narrative for how to do anything. It's really, how can we enable you to do this for yourself and to enjoy this hobby, which we can talk more about. We think it's on a growth curve. We think mixed drinks, we think craft cocktails, we think craft distilleries are kind of today, 2021, are where microbreweries were in the mid-90s. There's a massive inflection happening with, and some of it's legislative, which is very interesting. Laws are loosening about who's allowed to own a still and not own a still, who's allowed to sell it and how you're allowed to sell it. It's a very complex patchwork of laws. But the upshot is people are making delicious liquors, and for the first time in 100 years, and we get to benefit from that. And I think for me personally, I made a drink for some friends and served it, and this friend, whose name I won't mention, took a sip and said, "I would pay $19 for this at a bar." And I was like, "Well, that's pretty good."
That's an indication you found your calling.
And it was nothing special, right? I mean, it was just a combination of ingredients mixed together, served, not crazy high class or with all kinds of accoutrements, but served in a way that was like, I care about you, my friend. I want you to have a nice drink. I think you like this drink. I took a little bit of extra effort to squeeze the lemon right here in front of you. And here it is. And what do you think? And it was like, this is a New York, Manhattan, pick your destination. And we can do this in, the Midwest, right? And have, just a delicious experience and something to talk about with our friends.
So what you're saying is that cocktails are your love language. That's right.
Very true. Very true.
So what would you say your inspirations for making this book were?
There's a book that's out there that's actually way better than ours, and people should go buy it. It's called Drinking with the Saints. And the authors there, the whole book is a wonderful history lesson, not just in, great saints of the church, but also alcoholic beverages that are either come from or are somehow aligned with that particular saint. And frankly, we just kind of stole the title and swapped out saints for patriots. However, so that was one inspiration. Another inspiration would be that we as Steve mentioned, we were not trying to outdo each other, but we were trying to learn more. So we were sharing different bloggers and YouTubers who were really talking about the craft of making cocktails and how to, sort of technique videos, and this is a classic drink, that's a classic drink, or this is a new drink. And so I'd say we watched a lot of videos and read a lot during that time.
Yeah, and I was just mentioning that when Paul and I, we would share these YouTube channels with each other on craft cocktails, how to make cocktails. And I would always tell him, you know, I'm great at following recipes, but what I kind of need is an instructional book. It would be great if it just told me, these are the ratios.
Yeah.
You can use these ingredients and just make what you have on hand. And that's kind of what led us into making this book.
I mean, that's super helpful, and it's definitely something I needed. That was my impression when I first saw the book. My first impression immediately was, I needed this. Yeah. I'm so happy I found this. I needed this. Because like I had no idea how to make any kinds of drinks, really. So I, on the rocks is pretty, straightforward.
And there's, and I think we even say right in the beginning of the book, the neat is the liquor is served straight, maybe with ice. That drink, or the rum and coke, scotch and soda, the 2-ingredient drink, there's nothing wrong with them. I mean, those are great drinks. In our opinion, they're not cocktails. That's a drink. Drinks are great. We love drinks. We love beer and wine, but this book is about that sort of next step after a neat cocktail or a neat drink or a 2-ingredient cocktail, and really looking at, okay, where did this thing that is truly an American invention, where did it start? Where did it lead to? What's the evolution look like? And why is it, we think, sort of seeing a big resurgence in the popular culture, with Mad Men, the TV show a couple of years ago, to the growth of micro distilleries, all over the country, the loosening of liquor laws and distribution laws, and the fact that, liquors and liqueurs today taste a lot better than they did 10 years ago. I mean, we have a higher quality substrates that we can mix together and make something delicious. So that was what we were really trying to capitalize on.
And definitely you can tell it's been a labor of love, and you guys are out to educate people, which I really appreciate, because I definitely needed to have my hand held getting to that next level. And I like how you guys use like ratios and science, and you spelled it out and you outlined it with history. And I love the theme being pulled in, of being patriotic and focusing on American drinks. It just really ties everything together, which is what makes it like a really good 21st birthday gift,
Well, and then, your spouse, significant other might raffle you off, right? And that's
yes, you can use this book to learn how to be a marketable bartender.
There you go.
like the new raffling off of like an eligible bachelor,
Yeah.
Eligible bartender.
We don't have any single men here, but we got bartender. So of course you guys were talking before about how it was during COVID that you thought of all this. So this is very timely, because people are stuck in their homes. They have the time to really sit and perfect their favorite kind of drink and experiment and all of that. But then you had also brought up before how microbreweries are exploding right now, and the quality of liquor is getting better and better.
Yeah, and I would say as we were launching this idea, two things came to mind. If we're going to do this, let's do it properly. Let's form a little company. Let's have bylaw, let's treat it like a professional endeavor. And one of the reasons is there's tax advantages if you have an alcohol themed book business for your alcohol related expenses, right?
Oh my gosh! Fun fact.
Fun fact, and it's sort of, I'd read a thing, I mean, this was years ago, I read a thing about, the reason there's so many travel authors that have travel books is that when they travel to write in their travel books, like that's a tax deductible expense. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant, And so awesome. I like to drink alcohol, so let's have an alcohol business so that we can do something that's legitimately trying to make a profit, and all of our efforts and expenses, so that's part of it for sure. Is that we were, we tried to treat this like a professional endeavor.
Yeah.
And we had weekly meetings, and we figured out how to design a book, how to market a book, how to get our accounting set up. And so part of it was sort of turning what was a hobby into something that we were trying to take to the world, and doing learning that I think was really interesting and valuable, and a lot of fun, frankly, and doing it with friends, right?
Yeah.
And like you said, doing it during COVID, making lemonade out of lemons. We're all stuck together, we're all sort of cooped up here. Given that the market was looking like it was going up and to the right with respect to people, buying more booze, not
hang out at home,
Yeah, exactly. And you're stuck in your home, and you might as well have something that tastes good. And so that was really our motivation. Was we enjoyed ourselves. We found a way to make it fun and happy. And how can we share with others a way to do the same thing?
There's quite a few things that set your book apart from other cocktail books, and we've touched down a little bit on some of them. What would you say are the biggest things that set your book apart from other books?
So what I think is the unique aspect of this book is the journaling. There's a lot of cocktail books out there, and all are recipes, and just no place for you to be creative with your own recipes, your own variations. A lot of times you may have a recipe in a book that you don't have the ingredients for, and to be able to substitute those and make notes on what you have done is a big aspect to it.
Yeah.
And I would say for me, the way we tried to organize the book was looking at the really classic styles of drink, and boiling them down into the fundamental ratios that make up not just that drink, but that whole family of drinks. And so what we've come up with in the book is 6 really prototypical drinks, or archetypal, I guess, if we're going to be properly literate about it. But within the ratios that we describe, what we really encourage is that, for the liquor or the sugar or the, additional liqueur, whatever it is that you're making, that you can substitute in and out different spirits, different secondary liqueurs, and have a whole new drink that you can, like Steve said, you can make it on the fly based on what do you have in front of you. And that also, the final point is that like we have tried to have an interactive relationship with the book, like we've tried to have this sort of choose your own adventure with playing with the ratios and coming up with your own special drink. We really want the hobbyist, aficionado to learn how to engage with who they're making the drink for.
Yeah.
And you, as the bartender, are responsible for learning and understanding what your guest likes and doesn't like in a drink, and modifying these recipes to give them the most, tasteful, enjoyable experience that you can. So it's like, I think one of the things Steve and I have experienced is, having written the book, we can ask people like 3 or 4 questions. What liquor do you like? Sweet, sour.
Yeah.
And we can, like, here, let me make you something, and give it to them and say, what did you think? And they'll say, is fantastic. It's a little tart for my flavor, my taste. I prefer it with a little bit more this and that. And then the second round we'll adjust. And what we really try to promote in the book is this idea of listening. That the part of the fun, truly, of making nice drinks for people is listening to their feedback and taking their feedback, again, using the journal. Wife liked, wife didn't like, whatever. Adjusting for the individual's preferences, right? Because we all have different preferences. And this is now getting meta, perhaps, about what the book is trying to do. And we can talk about some of the other themes, but the idea is that this is a little practice skill in our society right now, is listening to other people and adjusting your own behavior based on what you hear from them. And so if you can do it for like a really nice drink, like maybe you could transpose that newfound skill into other parts of your life.
That's a really good point. And I think that also comes back on, listening to someone, listening to what they liked and what they didn't like, adjusting based on that. Yes, you should be applying that to all your other relationships. And this is kind of like a how-to on this level. Right. And also what's important that I've noticed is, making people feel like they have the tools and making them, feel empowered. And I think that that's a really important life skill, and to care about other people and their tastes and their preferences, and then not taking it personally. I think that's another thing people need to learn. If you make a drink for someone and they like most things about it, but there's like one thing that they would tweak, you're not going to be like, excuse me, I poured my heart and soul into that glass. So people learning to be less offended by things is also another great thing that Americans probably should be focusing on a little bit, which brings me to my next point, that this is an American themed book. It's, patriot, the term patriot, unfortunately, in recent times has been a divisive term. Mm-hmm. And that's very, very sad to me. That's another reason why I really like this book, because it is bold. It's very much like, we are patriots. There's lots to love about our history, and it's okay to be patriotic, and taking your patriotism into something like cocktails that you make to make other people happy and learn how to cater and love other people and not be offended. It all ties together in this, like you said, like a meta way.
So I think a really important thing to keep in mind, as you said, there's a lot to be proud of about our history. This is fun. This is cocktails, but cocktails are American. It was invented here. It was not brought over and adjusted from Europe or from somewhere else. This was absolutely an American creation, and we are looking to sort of celebrate that. This is a contribution to social enjoyment in the entire world that we think is a great thing. Number two, there's a very funny thing you can find very quickly on the internet, which is the bar bill of the founding fathers. And at the Continental Congress,
there's lots of excitement there about this.
Drank so much. Their bar bill was insane. They just, it was like barrels of whiskey and crates of port and all the different things. And I think, especially in the that revolutionary and early phase of the Republic, when so many difficult questions and so many compromises were happening, the drink was part of how they achieved compromise. Yeah. And it was not just a thing that they did. It was a thing that happened that helped people with very different worldviews come together and create something better. And so, again, a little bit meta, if you will, but the idea here is that drinks can bring us together, and drinks can help us sort of see beyond ourselves.
Yeah.
If we are in the frame of listening to other people.
Yeah.
And I think that's really one of the lessons to learn from the founding fathers, and really how they treated alcohol.
Yeah. And I mean, it comes right back down to like, circles right back around to like this being a love language. We can't agree on something. Listen. Let's just take a drink. And
Exactly.
then we will love each other a little bit more. And we will compromise.
Right. Yeah, and it's you know, in a certain sense, you know, there was a little mini pause there for different historical reasons when alcohol was illegal in this country. I mean, we were the first country to decide to run that experiment. I'll note that progressives decided that was a good idea, not, you know, real Americans, but that's my opinion.
But the non-patriots is that what you're saying? It was an unpatriotic move. Prohibition was very unpatriotic.
The outcomes were not great. You know, it was encouraged lawlessness. A lot of people got really rich from breaking the law. You know, and so we're still living with some of the sub-legal systems that developed, you know, during that period, and it's unfortunate. But you know, again, you know, what we're trying to emphasize the positives in our book, and as you said, while there's absolutely this initial focus on the revolutionary period, we try to take it through, you know, the 20th century with respect to a rediscovery of some of the European influences to liqueurs and different alcohols, and what that brought back into the American experience. And it really mirrors in a lot of ways the immigration practices through the 19th and 20th century, when you know, things like vermouth, right, got reintroduced into drinking. When things like you know, drinks named after French monastic orders got reintroduced into, you know, 800-year-old recipes became part of the American lexicon in places like New Orleans, right? And we've ended up with these phenomenal drinks where we have the New World being reintroduced to the Old World, and you've created something completely new, right? And that's what we try to get across with respect to, this is an innovation, you know, and this is taking new things and old things and mixing them together and serving them to people, and really, you know, taking the world by fire, because that's what happened with the cocktail.
I mean, it's a celebration of culture. It's a celebration of the things that bring people together, the things that we ought to celebrate, diversity, strengthening togetherness.
That's right.
You know? And it comes right back to, that's what makes America great. America's a melting pot. You know, we're not afraid to take opinions and belief systems and bring them together and, you know, feed off of each other in the best ways.
That's right. That's right. And again, you know, people talk about alcohol as a social lubricant. You know, maybe in another sense, it's sort of, it's more like a catalyst. You know, it brings two diverse things together, and being that substrate and that intermediary allows something new to happen. And so you're not ignoring or disrespecting or whatever anyone else's previous point of view, but what you end up with is something new, different, that is equally owned by both parties.
Yeah. I mean, I've been in situations where it's like two people don't want to talk to each other. And, you know, both sides are like, listen, just get a few drinks into them.
That's right.
And the next thing you know is they are crying and hugging. I mean, I'm so sorry. No, I'm sorry. I'm more sorry than you are. And it's that competition of love.
I love you.
More. Brought to you by alcohol. So let's get into the nitty gritty of the book details, because we've touched down on, you know, how you get into history. The first 20 pages has a lot of very useful information, which is one of the things that sets this book apart. So Why did you include the type of information that you did?
Yeah, great question. So, like you said, we had in mind a reader who maybe had heard about cocktails, had one at a bar, knew just a little bit, and we really wanted to see how quickly we could get from a standing start to proficient, and really, pardon the pun, distilling what Steve and I had sort of developed over several years of try this, try that. And so it starts with, what are the core spirits that form the foundation of the drink? What are the core secondary liqueurs that you would add to a drink? What are the acids and the sugars and the bitters that you might bring to bear on a drink? And then how do you actually construct the drink? What are the techniques for making the drink? What's the hardware and the glassware to mix and serve the drink? Because, like any hobby, I mean, you compare it to photography, okay? Yeah. There's nothing in our book that is going to require you spend $900 today, right, to get a whatever camera. You can spend $900 over the course of a year, but you don't have to spend that to start. And so what we tried to do was to give people a framework for building up a bar, building up a set of hardware, things that you would use to make your drinks, and then being selective about what other things you would want to bring in as you expand your horizons.
Yeah. Yeah, I really like the staples section that you guys have in here about things that are very handy to have on hand to make all these things. That's awesome.
I guess one other thing that became apparent to us as we were making drinks is most drinks are about a quarter to a third water. And you don't think about that because most drinks are either stirred over ice or mixed with ice. And it turns out that high quality ice actually, good quality water that makes the ice really impacts the flavor. And so, if you're scooping out ice that's been sitting with your fish sticks for 6 months, your delicious drink might taste a little bit like fish sticks. So being mindful, of the things that you're putting into your drink. And again, it's that attention to what am I trying to construct and what kind of taste am I trying to achieve?
Yeah.
And like any hobby, it's like, ooh, if I spend this much more, I can have a better hobby, right? So there's that, but you don't need to spend a lot of money out of the gate to start to have some fun with it.
That's a really good tip. I had never stopped to think about that, actually. So how do you guys make sure that you have the best ice for your drinks then? Do you have a special ice maker? You get fresh ice right away? How do you do that?
Well, we have ice molds that we use. Surprisingly enough, there's videos on YouTube on how to make the best ice for your cocktails. Those are helpful.
Yep. There's definitely things you can buy to make ice better. Easy things, using filtered water to make your ice. I'm a nerd, so I run the line to the fridge freezer through a filter, so all the ice in my freezer, is filtered before it gets there. So it helps. And it's, as you're making a lot of drinks, you can really taste the difference. And I'll tell you when you can really taste the difference is if you go to a bar where they use bad ice, or a bad, stale. We talk in the book about vermouth. A lot of people don't know that you need to refrigerate vermouth. And so if you have a drink made with vermouth that's been sitting on shelf 3 for 6 months, you can tell. And that's using the little squeeze bottle of lime juice instead of a fresh squeezed lime, you can tell, and the freshness counts. And I just reflect back on the anecdote about, would you rather have a chocolate chip cookie that came straight out of the oven or a Chips Ahoy that's been, packaged and cooked who knows when. It really applies to cocktails as well.
Well, I mean, then it makes you wonder if you're convinced that you hate a certain kind of cocktail because you once ordered it and then you swear off of it, you're never going to order it again. Like, you could be missing out on an awesome cocktail that could be your favorite, you know?
Yep. Absolutely.
So experimentation is so important.
And that's the exact thing with the martini, is that they say that most people who say, oh, I don't like martinis, it's because somebody made them a martini with dry vermouth that has sat in their bar, unrefrigerated for 6 months, and it just spoiled the drink.
That was me. I like swore off of martinis.
Yeah.
But I didn't have martinis for the longest time because I was like,
Yeah. Yeah. And then the other thing is thinking about with whatever style of drink you're making, you know, what is the spirit that you're trying to accentuate in a particular drink, and partnered with the idea that, you know, maybe in our youth, we may have had an alcohol that didn't sit well with us for whatever reason, a gin, a tequila. I'll never have gin and tequila again, like this sort of experience. Or, you know, an experience with a bad version of one of those spirits. And, you know, I think the point that we've been trying to get across is, you know, especially today, you know, there are so many wonderful low-priced spirits that it's really worth revisiting the gins, the tequilas, whatever it is that you may think you would never drink again, but experiencing it in such a way that it's like, wow, this is a phenomenal drink. I've never had a drink like this, and it's a gin-based drink. Oh my goodness, you know, who would know?
One of my favorite cocktails is the Black Manhattan, and that's whiskey, Averna, and bitters. But that drink is completely different with like a Maker's Mark versus an Angel's Envy rye. I mean, they're two different drinks, even though it's the same ingredients as far as the ratios and the whiskey, but just the different whiskey changes it. So I don't know that I have a favorite. Well, I do have a favorite whiskey, but as far as like in cocktails, it just depends on the combination of the ingredients, I suppose.
Yeah, I would say, you know, the first question about whether there's a favorite style of drink, my quick answer is it depends. You know, if it's sort of pick the scenario, but I just want to relax and unwind, you know, gosh, an old fashioned or a Manhattan, a wonderful style of drink. If it's a hot summer weekend afternoon, you know, a sour is great. A Collins is great. We've had so much fun experimenting with different kinds of daisies, which is a drink with a component which is an orange liqueur typically in it. And so again, it really depends, you know, and it's what's your mood? What do you feel like? What do you have available? Because, you know, you don't want to just run to the liquor store. You want to deal with what you've got. But as Steve said, even if you've got like a preferred style of drink, swapping out, you know, one gin for another or one whiskey for another, or even, you know, one in that example, one Amaro for another. I mean, it's like the angels, right? Like the angels are like every single one of them is a different species. You know, that's like the fun with Amaro as a particular type of drink. Every single one of them is like none of the others, you know, whereas
I like how you just like compare the species of angels to cocktails.
It is. It's true. It's true. And so it's like, you know, Steve's example where you make a Black Manhattan with Averna, which is one brand of Amaro, or Ramazzotti, which is another brand of Amaro, or Montenegro, which is another brand of Amaro, keeping all things the same. Those are three unique drinks. Yeah. And you couldn't they're in the category of Black Manhattan, but they're totally different. and this component part of Amaro, each of them is so different from the other that it makes the drink a completely different experience. And that's the fun. That's what makes it really entertaining.
I'm really into that sort of just fun experimentation, science and all that jazz. So there are 6 different styles in this book. Do you want to touch down on a summary of each one for me?
Sure. You want to go first?
Well, I would start with my 2 favorites, the Martini style, the 2-1-2, and the Negroni, the 3-2-1. Those tend to be more spirit forward cocktails and my personal favorites.
The sour is a wonderful drink for really for anyone. The daisy, daisy, the Spanish word for daisy is margarita. So if you think along those lines, you start to understand what that flavor profile looks like, and then think about all the different variations you can have. And again, here we are, 4th of July. Anything with bubbles is fun, right? And so you can take a drink and make a drink and serve it over ice, and then fill the glass with club soda or tonic water or ginger beer or what have you. And that's a phenomenal drink as well. And so, like I said earlier, it's really, what are you in the mood for? And I think what we've tried to do in this book is have serious drinks and fun drinks, sort of presented in a similar format. And I think one of the things that that we like to think about is, I'm a kid of the 80s. There was a very popular children's book series back in the day called Choose Your Own Adventure, right? Where you could read through the pages and have a decision, and go to page 24, go to page 45, based on your decision. And I think that's what we are really trying to encourage with the journaling aspect, is that our the recipes, the cocktails that we present are there as framework for experimentation. And what we try to show is, whether you keep it 2-1-1 or 2-1 a half, or you play with these things that are really easy to keep in your head as you're trying to, craft the cocktail. It's kind of, 5th grade math. It's not super complex, especially when you've had, your second drink. But you can still make something delicious, and you can still use, again, the things that are on hand. And the journaling aspect lets you record, hey, my wife, my friend appreciated the drink. Note to self, lime juice is better in this drink than lemon juice. Those sorts of things.
Yeah. And then, people will feel special if you have on record, like remembering what they liked the best about each certain different kind of drink. And then another way to make someone feel loved.
Absolutely.
It all comes back. So kind of like an interactive cookbook type thing.
Exactly. And I think that was one of the things where we were actually finishing up the book and getting it ready to send to the publisher. And there was actually there was a story in the New York Times about the new style of interactive cookbooks, where cookbooks were trying to have a dialogue with the chef, with the reader. And we realized that's what this book is. We'd written a book that is really a dialogue with the novice bartender. And what we're trying to do is sort of say, hey, you can do this. It's not hard. It's sort of, remember the ratio. Here are your choices within each category. And here's some fun you can have with the different variations as you go through.
Yeah. It's kind of like, oops, we were ahead of the times.
Literally.
But one of the other noticeable things about your book is the fact that you guys did not attach your names to the book. You see nowhere on here. So Paul, Steve, and Henry are not on here. Why was that?
So it's really harkens back to, again, the revolutionary time. And when the the most important discussions and debates were happening at the beginning of the country with the First and Second Continental Congress, with the arguments about the Federalist Papers and the role between the state and the federal government. Most of the participants in that discussion used pen names, and they were publishing, Publius and Pennsylvania Farmer, and the point of it was they didn't want their self to override their argument, and so they really removed themselves from the presentation of their idea so that people could focus on the idea. And so, it's not that we're not proud of it, like, hooray, we published a book during COVID. It was more sort of as a hat tip, to the founding fathers who really wanted us to focus on the main idea, right? As we were trying to come up with compromises. And so that's what we tried to do in this book. Is our main idea is you can be a great bartender, and what Paul, Steve, and Henry have to say about it actually isn't important. It's what you want to do, with this hobby.
Have your own land and be a patriot of your own bar.
Exactly.
I thought it was a publishing error. I didn't realize they weren't in there.
Yeah, Steve should have looked a little more closely.
Wait a minute.
This is the last edit, Steve. Reasons to check your email, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so do you guys have a website where someone can go to learn more about the book?
Absolutely. Drinkingpatriots.com is more about the book. There's an order form there. The retail price of the book is $17.76.
Why?
But I will say, for your listeners, we've actually activated a coupon, and the single word "buckle up" BUCKLEUP will get your viewers a 20% discount on our book.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for doing this with me. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. So I had an awesome patriotic video to put out for the 4th of July. I hope launching this on the 4th of July is, a momentous thing for all of us. So this fits in with my theme perfectly. And I'm very, very grateful to you guys for allowing me to do this with you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This is great.
I encourage everybody to go visit that website, and I will include in my description links to their website. So thank you, Paul and Steve.
Thank you.
Thank you, Regina.
That's our second youngest.
The one crying is my youngest, so she'll get over it.
Yeah, I've got a crier. I've got one that cannot be pleased. My eldest daughter is 8. She drew a picture of the family today, and she drew my other crying daughter crying. And my daughter looks at me and she goes, "I don't cry all the time." I'm like, but you do.
You kind of do.
But you do.